Okay, let's talk about debt. That word debt, it often brings up uh, a lot of fear, maybe some anxiety.
Oh, definitely.
For most of us, it feels like this thing to avoid, right? A
Yeah.
burden. But what if some debt wasn't actually bad? What if, and this sounds weird, what if some debt could actually be a tool, something the wealthy even use to, build their fortunes?
It's a challenging idea for sure. And that's really our mission today in this deep dive. We want to unpack this whole complex, often really misunderstood world of debt.
Right?
We'll look at some drastically different views on what debt actually means for your financial health. We'll try to distinguish the different kinds and talk about some real strategies for managing it.
Right.
The idea is to give you a kind of shortcut to understanding this really crucial financial topic so you can make smarter decisions, whatever your situation looks like right now.
Okay, yeah, let's dive into that.
Mm.
Because that idea that all debt is bad is just so common, and maybe for good reason sometimes, but it feels like it misses something. What's the distinction? How can some debt possibly be good?
Absolutely. Look, the general feeling about debt is negative.
Yeah.
And yeah, high interest stuff, credit cards, irresponsible spending, those are financial traps. Definitely.
Sure.
But the core difference really is its purpose. Ask yourself, is this debt helping me generate income? Or acquire something that grows in value, an appreciating asset? Or, significantly boost my net worth? If yes, then it could potentially be seen as good.
Yeah.
It's about using leverage, not just carrying a burden.
Ah, okay, so it's the why behind the borrowing, not just the borrowing itself, what it lets you do financially.
Exactly.
So speaking of enabling things, what actually fits into this good debt box? What are some examples?
Well, a big one is education. Student loans, they can be good debt. Because generally more education often means higher earning potential, maybe better job prospects.
Right, the degree pays off.
Yeah, there's data showing a college degree or even a technical one can pay for itself in just a few years through higher earnings. But, and this is a big but, you have to be strategic.
'Cause
Well, the value of that specific degree in the job market really, really matters. Not all degrees open the same doors.
True. Okay, that's investing in yourself. What about using debt for, say, a business?
That's another classic example. Borrowing money to start a business, or maybe expand one that's already profitable. If that business can generate more money, more profit, then the loan costs you in interest.
Then you're winning.
Exactly. You're using someone else's money, basically, to create new wealth, to scale up faster than you could just saving your own cash. It's textbook leverage for growth.
Okay, and then the big one, the one most of us probably will take on,
Yeah.
a mortgage. That seems like a huge commitment, decades of payments. How's that still good debt?
Mortgages are, yeah, very often put in the good debt category, and for good reason, usually. When you get a mortgage for a home or maybe an investment property, you're buying an asset real estate.
Which hopefully goes up in value.
Historically, it tends to appreciate over the long run. So you build equity. You're controlling this valuable asset with maybe only, say, 10 or 20% down payment.
Right, leverage again.
Exactly. It magnifies your potential return if the property value goes up. Plus, you might get tax breaks, or if it's a rental, actual income. Some studies show residential real estate has generally outpaced inflation over decades. So a mortgage, if you choose wisely, can be like a leveraged bet on a pretty solid asset class historically.
Yeah.
Of course, the key is buying what you can truly afford and getting a decent interest rate. That's critical.
That paints a much clearer picture of the potential upside. But okay, let's flip the coin. Bad debt. This is what most people think of, the stuff that makes you cringe. How do we define that?
Right. Bad debt is generally borrowing for things that lose value, fast depreciating assets, or just for consumption.
Yeah.
Stuff you use up. And it often comes with high interest rates that just drain your wealth. No real lasting financial benefit.
And the absolute classic example here has to be credit cards, doesn't it? Just saying the words.
Probably the worst kind, yeah. Credit cards usually have sky-high APRs, annual percentage rates, like 15, 20, 25%, sometimes even more.
Right.
And if you carry a balance, don't pay it off every month. That interest compounds like crazy. It gets incredibly hard to dig yourself out.
And those rewards points everyone talks about?
Honestly, usually wiped out by the interest if you're carrying a balance. They're designed to get you to spend. Credit cards are mostly used for consumption, things that disappear, or stuff that loses value, or maybe emergencies when there's no savings. They actively drain your money.
Okay, so credit cards are bad if you carry a balance.
Yeah.
What other things should you just not go into debt for because they lose value so fast?
New cars are a huge one. They depreciate like a rock, often like 20 or 30% just in the first year.
Ouch.
Yeah, so you're borrowing money for something that's immediately worth way less. You can easily end up underwater, owing more on the loan than the car's actually worth.
Not a good place to be.
Definitely not. Boats are similar. They lose value quickly, too, and they come with all sorts of extra costs: maintenance, storage, fuel.
Right. And what about just spending? Using debt for a vacation or, I don't know, clothes, things with no lasting asset value.
That's squarely in the bad debt camp. Using high-interest debt for, yeah, clothes, food, travel. It gives you that temporary satisfaction, sure, but there's no financial return.
The tan fades, but the bill stays.
Exactly. You're paying, often with interest, for an experience that's long gone.
And then there are those loans that just feel predatory, designed to trap people.
Yes, things like payday loans or some really high-interest personal loans. Their interest rates are astronomical. You see APRs in the triple digits sometimes.
Triple digits, seriously.
Seriously, they target people who are desperate for cash, and unfortunately, they trap them in this awful, destructive cycle of debt. Quick cash now, but financial ruin later. Avoid them. Absolutely avoid them.
Okay, it seems like there's a pretty clear line there between good and bad, potentially. But are there like gray areas, situations where debt isn't neatly one or the other, where context is everything?
Oh, absolutely. It's not always black and white. It often depends a lot on your specific financial situation and, crucially, how you manage it. Well, take borrowing money to pay off other debt. That can be good if you do it right.
How? Like a consolidation loan?
Exactly. If you get a debt consolidation loan or maybe a balance transfer card with a significantly lower interest rate than your, say, high-interest credit cards, and you use that loan only to pay off that expensive debt, you can save a lot of money.
But the catch is?
The catch is discipline. You have to use that money solely to pay off the old debt. Don't see it as freeing up credit to spend more. You've got to change the habits that got you there.
Right, okay. What about borrowing to invest? That sounds potentially amazing, but also incredibly risky.
It definitely can be both. Using what's called a margin account, borrowing from your broker to buy stocks or other securities, that's called buying on margin.
And the idea is the investment goes up more than the interest costs.
That's the hope. It amplifies your potential gains. But, and this is a huge but, it also amplifies your losses. If the investment goes down, you can lose money much faster, and you still owe the borrowed amount plus interest. Yeah. It's really not for beginners or for anyone who can't comfortably afford to lose that money. You need a deep understanding of the market and your own tolerance for risk. It's advanced territory.
Okay, so we've kind of dissected this good versus bad debt idea. But here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because not everyone buys into that framework at all, do they?
Not even close.
There's this other really strong perspective that just challenges the whole idea that says all debt is bad. Full stop.
That's right. This view states it really firmly. There's no such thing as good debt, period. All debt, they argue, steals from you and your future.
Wow, steals from your future.
Yeah. The core idea often comes from that old saying, the borrower is slave to the lender. The moment you owe money, you're not just working for yourself or your family anymore.
They're working for the bank.
Or the credit card company or whoever holds the loan, you're working for them. And just to put some numbers on it, the average American carries something like $34,000 in consumer debt.
It's a lot.
From this perspective, that's just not okay. You're meant for more than just grinding away to pay off past borrowing. You're losing a huge chunk of your future income to interest.
That's a powerful reframe. But what about things like student loans? For many, they feel like the only way to get higher education. If you ditch the good debt label, how does this view suggest people handle that? Or, career changes that need training?
Yeah, it directly pushes back on student loans being good. The argument is they often just get in the way. They hold people back for years, creating this burden that might even outweigh the degree's benefit.
Especially if the job doesn't materialize right away.
Exactly. Or if it doesn't pay as much as expected. You hear stories, right? Someone's still drowning in debt from, say, an English degree they finished back in '98, still feeling held back financially decades later.
Oof. So what's the alternative then?
The focus shifts entirely. It's about finding creative ways to get educated without loans. Scholarships, grants, working your way through, choosing more affordable schools or programs. It demands more upfront planning, maybe sacrifice, but the goal is to avoid starting your career deeply in the hole.
Okay. And mortgages. We just talk about them being maybe the prime example of good debt for many. How does this debt is always bad view handle homeownership?
Well, they acknowledge mortgages are super common, maybe less toxic than credit cards, but
Yeah.
they are still unequivocally debt.
Still debt.
Still debt. So this perspective pushes for really strict guardrails if you must take out a mortgage, ideally. A 15-year fixed rate loan, not 30.
15, that's aggressive.
Very. And the payment should be less than, say, 25% of your actual take-home pay. Plus, you need a solid down payment, 10 or maybe even 20%.
But the ideal is?
The ideal, the absolute preference is pay cash for the house.
Wow.
The argument is simple. Why pay someone else interest for 15 or 30 years? That's money that could be working for you, for your family. You're not truly free until that mortgage is paid off.
That definitely changes the perspective. It makes something many see as normal, even necessary, into something to be like hyper cautious about.
Right.
So from this viewpoint, how do they break down the different types of debt? Not good or bad, just mechanically.
Right. Understanding the mechanics is crucial either way. So, first up, you have secured debt.
Secured.
Meaning it's backed by collateral, a physical thing like your car, your boat, your house. The lender has a claim on that specific item.
So if you don't pay?
They can take it back. Repossession for a car, foreclosure for a house. It means less risk for them, the lender, so you often get a lower interest rate. But it's more risk for you, the borrower, especially if the item is losing value, like that car we talked about.
Okay. So the opposite must be unsecured debt.
Exactly. Unsecured debt, no collateral backing it up. Think credit cards, most student loans, medical bills, those awful payday loans.
Right.
Since there's nothing specific for the lender to grab if you default, their risk is higher.
Which means higher interest rates for you.
Usually, yes. Much higher interest rates. And if you miss payments, you're more likely to deal with debt collectors, potentially even lawsuits trying to get the money back.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I hear terms like revolving and non-revolving debt thrown around. What's that about? Why does that matter?
Good question. Revolving debt is basically an open line of credit. Credit cards are the classic example. Store cards, too. You have a limit, you borrow up to it, you pay some back, you can borrow again.
Like a revolving door.
Pretty much. As long as you make that minimum payment, you can keep the account open and keep spending. But here's the trap. Only paying the minimum means interest piles up on the rest, month after month after month. And technically, you don't really own that thing you bought on the card until the balance is totally paid off, which could take years if you're just making minimum payments.
Okay. And non-revolving. That sounds more like a standard loan.
Exactly. Non-revolving debt is a loan for a fixed amount, paid back in set installments over a specific time. Once you pay it off, the loan is done, finished.
Examples.
Car loans, most business loans, student loans, mortgages. Because these are often for bigger amounts and longer terms, the total interest paid can be huge, even if the rate seems low. Like, remember that mortgage example? A $250,000 loan over 30 years at 3.8% interest. You end up paying back almost $420,000 in total.
Wow, that's nearly double.
Yeah, almost $170,000 just in interest. That's a staggering cost just for the privilege of borrowing. Really makes you think.
It really does. What about debt that's kind of sneaky? The stuff that hides in plain sight, maybe disguised as a great deal?
Ah, yes. Sneaky debt. You gotta watch out for this. Often it looks like a fantastic offer. 0% APR for 12 months or 90 days, same as cash on furniture or appliances.
Sounds good up front.
It does. But the catch is usually buried in the fine print. If you don't pay off every single penny before that promo period ends, boom, sky-high interest often kicks in. And sometimes, this is the really sneaky part, it's applied retroactively to the entire original purchase amount, right from day one.
Oh, that's nasty.
It's a common trap. Even cell phone contracts can be sneaky debt. They're essentially secured loans. You don't own that fancy phone until it's paid off. Stop paying, they can potentially brick it or demand it back.
Didn't think of it that way.
And even things like credit card points or airline miles. From the stricter viewpoint, they're seen as bait. Clever ways to get you to spend more than you normally would, chasing rewards, potentially leading you right back into debt.
Okay, so whether you think some debt can be good or all debt is bad, what's undeniable is you need to manage it smartly.
Absolutely.
So for anyone listening who wants to get control, whether they're trying to leverage debt carefully or just wipe it out completely, where do you even start? What's step one?
Both sides, both perspectives completely agree on this. Step one is make a budget.
The dreaded B word.
Yeah, but it's crucial. Statistically, a zero-based budget is often recommended. That means every single dollar you earn gets assigned a job before the month begins.
So you know exactly where it's all going.
Precisely. It gives you clarity. It helps you manage intentionally, spot where you might be overspending, and make sure those bills actually get paid on time. Once you see it laid out, you can look for places to cut back. Maybe trim a cable package, find ways to save on groceries, free up some cash.
Okay, budget done. You found some extra cash. How do you actually attack the debt you already have?
Right. Step 2 is prioritize eliminating that debt. There are two really common, really popular methods people use: the debt snowball and the debt avalanche.
Snowball and avalanche. Okay, break those down.
It's a snowball method. You list all your debts, smallest balance to largest, ignoring interest rates. You make minimum payments on everything except the smallest one. You throw every extra dollar you have at that smallest debt until it's gone. Then you take all the money you were paying on that smallest debt, the minimum payment plus all the extra, and you add it to the minimum payment of the next smallest debt. You attack that one.
Ah, so the payment amount snowballs as you pay things off.
Exactly. It's designed for psychological wins. Paying off debts quickly, even small ones, builds momentum and keeps you motivated.
Okay. And the avalanche.
The debt avalanche is similar, but you list your debts by interest rate, highest to lowest. You make minimum payments on everything except the debt with the highest interest rate. You throw all your extra money at that one.
And then roll the payment to the next highest rate.
You got it. Mathematically, the avalanche method saves you the most money on interest over time because you're tackling the most expensive debt first.
So snowball for motivation, avalanche for math efficiency.
That's a good way to put it. Whichever method you choose, the key is consistency and being aggressive. Any extra money you find, a bonus from work, a tax refund, savings from cutting expenses, throw it straight at the debt. Every little bit helps knock it down faster.
What about consolidating or refinancing? We touched on that earlier as a gray area. When does that make sense in a debt elimination plan?
It can be a good tool, but again, with serious caution. If you can consolidate several high-interest debts like credit cards into one loan with a significantly lower interest rate, yes, that can save you money on interest and make payments simpler.
But the danger is?
The danger is thinking the problem is solved just because the debt is moved. You have to commit to not racking up new debt on those now empty credit cards. Consolidation requires real discipline and a change in spending habits. Otherwise, you just end up in a deeper hole.
Right. It's a tool, not a magic wand.
Yeah.
What if someone is truly buried? Like the minimum payments are overwhelming. When do you consider the nuclear options?
Yeah, debt settlement or bankruptcy. Those
Oh.
are really last resorts for overwhelming situations. But it's critical, absolutely critical, to understand they have severe consequences.
Like damaging your credit score.
Severely. For years, like 7 to 10 years typically. It makes it incredibly difficult to get loans, rent an apartment, sometimes even get certain jobs. Before even thinking about those routes, please talk to a reputable nonprofit credit counseling agency. They can help you explore all your options and understand the full long-term impact.
Okay, good advice. Now let's swing back to the other side for a second. For people who do want to use debt strategically as a tool for wealth building, keeping it as good debt, what specific strategies do they need to employ so it doesn't backfire?
Right. If you're aiming for good debt, you absolutely have to understand financial leverage, but also risk. First, calculate the potential return on investment, the ROI, before you borrow.
So will this thing, the education, the business, the property, genuinely make or save you more money than the total cost of the loan, including all the interest?
Exactly. You need a realistic projection, and you must assess the risk. What happens if things don't go as planned? Which leads to the next critical piece. Have an emergency fund.
The safety net.
Your cushion. 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses saved in cash. This is non-negotiable if you're taking on significant good debt. It stops a temporary problem, like a job loss or a big repair bill, from turning your strategic good debt into crippling bad debt because you suddenly can't make payments.
Makes sense. And always shop for the best rate, I assume.
Always, always, always. Even a small difference in the interest rate on a mortgage or a large business loan can save you tens of thousands of dollars over the life of the loan. It's worth the effort to shop around.
So it really boils down to having a solid financial foundation before you even think about leveraging debt like that.
Precisely. You need that solid budget we talked about. And you need a good credit score, a high score, built by consistently paying bills on time and keeping your credit card balances low relative to your limits. That's what unlocks those lower interest rates that make good debt actually work financially.
And it's not set it and forget it either, is it?
Definitely not. Continuous monitoring is key. Regularly check in on your debt levels, your interest rates, how those assets you bought are actually performing. Is the rental property cash flowing? Is the business hitting its targets? Financial situations change, markets change. You need to be ready to adjust your strategy if needed.
Okay. So wrapping this all up,
Mm-hmm.
what this really means for you, listening right now,
Right.
is that debt is clearly this incredibly powerful financial force.
Mm-hmm.
And you can approach it in really different ways. You can try to leverage it carefully to build wealth, or you can aim to eliminate it completely and live a debt-free life. There's no single right answer for everyone.
Absolutely. The real power comes from you understanding these nuances, the different types of debt, the different philosophies. That's what empowers you to make truly informed choices that fit your unique financial life, your goals, your values.
Hmm.
So as you think about everything we've kind of unpacked today, this idea that debt can be a catalyst for wealth creation and financial freedom versus the idea that it keeps you in the past, makes you worry about the present, and steals from your future. What does this deep dive mean for your relationship with debt moving forward? What's maybe one step, just one thing you can do today to manage?